Good evening, everyone. To open our meeting tonight, Chardell, can you please announce the first hymn?
Hymn 203. O Father, may we bear each hour the flag of hope and peace unfurled, and mirror forth love's sacred power to feed and bless a hungry world. We shall not falter by the way, if we but place our trust in Thee, obeying gladly, day by day, the living truth that makes man free. Hymn 203.
If you would like to follow along with the readings tonight, please go to our website, plainfieldcs.com, and from the home page, under the Weekly Lessons tab, you'll find the link for the Wednesday testimony meeting, and there you'll find the text of the readings. And the theme for tonight is Your Purpose as an Individual Child of God. And the readings will now be given by Elizabeth from Georgia.
The Bible. Psalms. The Lord will perfect that which concerneth me. Thy mercy, O Lord, endureth forever. Forsake not the works of thine own hands. Ecclesiastes. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. He hath made everything beautiful in his time. Also, he hath set the world in their heart, so that no man can find out the work that God maketh from the beginning to the end. I know that there is no good in them, but for a man to rejoice and to do good in his life. And also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is the gift of God. Romans. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. Ephesians. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God hath before ordained that we should walk in them. Matthew. And Jesus went about all Galilee, and seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him, and he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Ye are the salt of the earth. But if the salt have lost his savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out, and to be trodden under foot of men. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth a light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works, and glorify your Father, which is in heaven. 1 Corinthians. Now there are diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are differences of administration, but the same Lord. And there are diversities of operations, but it is the same God which worketh all in all. But the manifestation of the Spirit is given to every man to profit withal. For to one is given by the Spirit the word of wisdom, to another the word of knowledge by the same Spirit, to another faith by the same Spirit, to another the gifts of healing by the same Spirit, to another the working of miracles, to another prophecy, to another discerning of spirits, to another diverse kinds of tongues, to another the interpretation of tongues. But all these worketh that one and the self-same Spirit, dividing to every man severally as he will. Ephesians. I, therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you that ye walk worthy of the vocation wherewith ye are called, with all lowliness and meekness, with long-suffering, forbearing one another in love. Unto every one of us is given grace according to the measure of the gift of Christ. And he gave some apostles, and some prophets, and some evangelists, and some pastors and teachers, for the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Christ, till we all come in the unity of the faith, and of the knowledge of the Son of God, unto a perfect man, unto the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. Philippians. Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure, who hath saved us and called us with an holy calling, not according to our works, but according to his own purpose and grace, which was given us in Christ Jesus before the world began. I will read correlative passages from Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures and prose works by Mary Baker Eddy. God is the life or intelligence which forms and preserves the individuality and identity of animals as well as of men. The divine ego, or individuality, is reflected in all spiritual individuality, from the infinitesimal to the infinite. The individuality of man is no less tangible because it is spiritual and because his life is not at the mercy of matter. The understanding of his spiritual individuality makes man more real, more formidable in truth, and enables him to conquer sin, disease, and death. The universe of spirit is peopled with spiritual beings, and its government is divine science. Man is the offspring, not of the lowest, but of the highest qualities of mind. Man understands spiritual existence in proportion as his treasures of truth and love are enlarged. Mortals must gravitate Godward. Their affections and aims grow spiritual. They must near the broader interpretations of being and gain some proper sense of the infinite in order that sin and mortality may be put off. This scientific sense of being, forsaking matter for spirit, by no means suggests man's absorption into deity and the loss of his identity, but confers upon man enlarged individuality, a wider sphere of thought and action, a more expansive love, a higher and more permanent peace. A knowledge of the science of being develops the latent abilities and possibilities of man. It extends the atmosphere of thought, giving mortals access to broader and higher realms. It raises the thinker into his native air of insight and perspicacity. Spirit diversifies, classifies, and individualizes all thoughts, which are as eternal as the mind conceiving them. But the intelligence, existence, and continuity of all individuality remain in God, who is the divinely creative principle thereof. Spirit, God, gathers unformed thoughts into their proper channels and unfolds these thoughts, even as he opens the petals of a holy purpose in order that the purpose may appear. First, purify thought. Then put thought into words, and words into deeds. And after much slipping and clamoring, you will go up the scale of science to the second rule, and be made ruler over many things. Fidelity finds its reward and its strength in exalted purpose. Seeking is not sufficient whereby to arrive at the results of science. You must strive, and the glory of the strife comes of honesty and humility. The Christian strives for the spiritual. He abides in a right purpose, as in laws which it were impious to transgress, and follows truth fearlessly. The heart that beats mostly for self is seldom alight with love. To live so as to keep human consciousness in constant relation with the divine, the spiritual, and the eternal, is to individualize infinite power, and this is Christian Science. One must fulfill one's mission without timidity or dissimulation. For to be well done, the work must be done unselfishly. Unselfish ambition, noble life motives, and purity. These constituents of thought, mingling, constitute individually and collectively true happiness, strength, and permanence. The lives of great men and women are miracles of patience and perseverance. Every luminary in the constellation of human greatness, like the stars, comes out in the darkness to shine with the reflected light of God. God expresses in man the infinite idea, forever developing itself, broadening and rising higher and higher from a boundless basis. Seek to occupy no position whereto you do not feel that God ordains you. Never forsake your post without due deliberation and light, but always wait for God's finger to point the way. The only true ambition is to serve God and to help the race. Goodness never fails to receive its reward, for goodness makes life a blessing. As an active portion of one stupendous whole, goodness identifies man with universal good. Thus, may each member of this church rise above the oft-repeated inquiry, "What am I?" to the scientific response, "I am able to impart truth, health, and happiness, and this is my rock of salvation and my reason for existing." Children of light, you are not children of darkness. Let your light shine. Keep in mind the foundations of Christian Science. One God and one Christ. Keep personality out of sight, and Christ's "Blessed are ye" will seal your apostleship. When human struggles cease, and mortals yield lovingly to the purpose of divine love, there will be no more sickness, sorrow, sin, and death.
We will now have a moment of silent prayer and then follow by repeating together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Okay, Jeff, can you please announce the next hymn?
Hymn number 166. Know, O child, thy full salvation. Rise o'er sin and fear and care, joy to find in every station, something still to do or bear. Hymn number 166.
No. Welcome to the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent. This is our weekly Wednesday evening testimony meeting for Wednesday, July 25th, 2018. Welcome one and all. All of our services, classes, etc. are broadcast live to the public through live streaming over the internet through our website, as well as through our YouTube channel. And we offer a teleconference so that you can call on your telephone and join us, listen, and participate. I would like to encourage everyone to browse through our website. There's a lot of wonderful, inspired material there. And I'd like to point out a couple of items that we're now featuring on the home page of our website. One of them is an article entitled "The Cure for Fear" by Willis F. Gross. Fear, obviously, is something that each of us need to face and rise above, and this article is very helpful, and I recommend that you read it. And also, I'd like to mention again about our magazine, Love is the Liberator. And the theme for this magazine this time is forgiveness. It can be found on the homepage of our website. Can't say enough good things about it. I recommend you read it. Please join us every Sunday. We start on Sundays at 10 o'clock in the morning with our roundtable discussion. We follow that with our church service at 11 o'clock. And we also offer a Sunday school for children. It meets at 11 o'clock on Sunday mornings. And this Sunday school is available by its own teleconference number, so your child can attend regardless of where you live. So call the church. We'll give you the number for the Sunday school. We would love to welcome your child there. And now I will read from the Church Manual by Mary Baker Eddy, the section entitled Testimonials. Glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. St. Paul. Testimony in regard to the healing of the sick is highly important. More than a mere rehearsal of blessings, it scales the pinnacle of praise and illustrates the demonstration of Christ, who healeth all thy diseases. This testimony, however, shall not include a description of symptoms or of suffering, though the generic name of the disease may be indicated. Now, for those of you that give a testimony tonight, please keep it within 4 minutes so that everyone will have a chance to share their offering. And for those of you who are on the teleconference, when you're ready to give your testimony, please press the star button twice on your telephone. But keep in mind that when you do so, we're going to be able to hear you as well as any other sounds that your telephone picks up. So please be in a quiet place. And I will call on each of you one at a time by name. And our meeting tonight is now open for the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Jim from Arizona, go ahead.
Good evening. This morning I reviewed what Mr. Drummond wrote concerning the greatest thing in the world. Those who have been working on the background on the current copy of Love is the Liberator have performed an outstanding labor of love. The end result was absolutely outstanding. Both the format and the contents are superb. The temperature today hit a high of 110 degrees, and the natives have a tendency to complain a bit, but I find it rather tolerable, for the humidity is very, very low. I did review the progress of the builders in the neighborhood that have been made, but I did quickly retreat to the air conditioning of my home. This afternoon, I spent much of the time on future copies of the newsletter. I am most grateful for any and all copy sent to me for the future newsletters. Thank you.
Thank you. Candy from Wisconsin, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And thank you, Elizabeth, for those practical readings on our true purpose. Tonight, I would like to share with you what has happened. In the past week, I have stepped up my studying of Christian Science and have received many blessings. We had a remote control supplied by our cable provider that did not work and decided to get it replaced. We arrived at the cable store, logged in at the kiosk, and waited about 15 minutes for the new remote. When I got home and programmed it, it did not work properly. The next day, we decided to get it over with and take it back and return it. When we arrived at the cable store, we parked about 4 spaces from the store. While I waited in back of the store for my husband, one of the cable store doors opened, and out came the clerk that had waited on us the day before. She asked us if all we wanted to do was exchange remotes. After showing her what was inoperable on the remote from the day before, she said, "Oh, wait a minute, let me get you 2." And she came out and gave us 2 remotes to take home. We never even had to enter the store. Hymn number 342, the second stanza says, "The Lord will hear before we call, and every need supply. Good things are freely given to all who on His word rely." I would just like to thank you for this church and to my practitioner for teaching me how to apply all the readings and all the things that Mary Baker Eddy has given us. Thank you, and have a beautiful night.
Thank you. Shahidat from Maryland, go ahead.
Good evening. A few months back, after a weekend away, the contemplative weekend to be exact, I came home to a mini flood in my kitchen. As a relatively new homeowner, I initially had no idea what to do when it became clear that the damage was pretty substantial. The water leak appeared to have gushed all weekend and damaged flooring, cabinets, drywall, and the crawl space insulation. As we worked to mop up the water, I just sadly prayed for guidance, but I found it hard to quiet my thoughts amidst the fear that I was facing a considerable home improvement bill that I could not afford. I felt led to text several folks, including a friend who owned a roofing company, for guidance. Being late on a Sunday evening, I did not get very many return texts. But shortly, my friend from the roofing company did call me back and calmly explained that this situation was exactly why I had home insurance. He reminded me that they always have a 24-hour hotline and urged me to call and file a claim. I did call, and my insurance company sent a wet vac company to suck up the water and finally stop the leak. Before leaving that evening, I set several industrial fans and a dehumidifier to begin the drying process. The noise from all those machines made it hard to rest, and I barely got any sleep. I began to regret the decision to become a homeowner at all. At that moment, my life felt like 1 step forward, 3 steps backward, never getting ahead. The next day, I was able to talk to my practitioner, and she reminded me that the home was in God's care and everything would be sorted out accordingly. The wet vac company returned with more fans, and after the drying process had taken a long time, they promised to come back 2 days later to begin the demolition process. And when the man said demolition, my heart really jumped out of my chest because I thought, oh, there goes my cozy little home. So 3 days later, they came back to remove the flooring in the bottom of the cabinets plus all the wet crawl space insulation in preparation for the insurance adjuster. The practitioner once again reminded me that the adjuster could only be fair in his assessment and that I could not ever be lacking. Additionally, she told me that I only needed one contractor and that God would send the right contractor to me, after several contractors declined to even come and see the project once they found out it was an insurance job. Well, long story short, I found a contractor willing to do the work and reuse a lot of the undamaged kitchen materials, and it was only about 6% of the generous insurance reimbursement that I did receive. I was able to use the remainder of the money to insulate my attic. And just this week, the work was fully completed. I now have repaired new cabinet, new flooring, sealed crawl space, and a fresh coat of paint, plus a well-insulated attic. And early on, it became evident to me that this experience would teach me about trusting God, and it's done exactly that. I am so grateful for the loving support of the practitioner and feel incredibly blessed to have been led to this church, where Christian Science is more than a nice theory, but truly a way of life that always produces the right result. As was said earlier in the readings tonight, the Lord did perfect that which concerneth me, and I am very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Luba from Ohio, go ahead.
Good evening. Since coming to Plainfield, I have come to understand the true meaning of home, the spiritual idea of home. We realized we could no longer live in a house we had been renting, and I was praying that God would find a home and location where I was meant to be. After searching for quite a while and after much praying, with nights of literally being on my knees praying, I found a house. I knew it was the home because tears came to my eyes before I even entered the place. After much miraculous negotiations, we got the house for what could be called a steal. It was after that I contacted a practitioner at Plainfield. She explained to me that the house was a spiritual idea and that a spiritual idea has not a single element of error. With daily working with my practitioner and some minimal renovation, the home I live in is beyond my own expectation. Through all this, I have learned not to ever give up and trust in God only. Now, in the Blue Book on page 225 to 226, it reads, My home has an everlasting foundation. There is no limit to its beauty and pleasantness, and infinite love conducts my home. There is but one homemaker, one home beautiful, one builder, one habitation. For in him we live and move and have our being. Principle gives every good and perfect gift. Principle gives all, is the only source and cause of all good. I am so very grateful to my practitioner, this church, and Mary Baker Eddy for all the blessings that have come about. And I'm so happy to be here tonight, and thank you for tonight's reading.
Thank you. Luann from New York, go ahead.
Thank you. Most of my life was one big roller coaster ride. I could never seem to find any balance. It was always feast or famine, drought or flood, fight or flight. But through Christian Science and the work of my practitioner, I am gaining that balance that can only come by putting God first. Earlier this year, when I went to the Plainfield Church for a gathering of members, I left with the peaceful assurance that heaven can be experienced right here on earth. When I returned home, I was not sure how that would translate into my everyday living. In the beginning of June, it started to get very hot and dry where I live. With temperatures in the 90s and even reaching above 100 for a week straight, local fire departments opened comfort stations for the elderly. After a month with no rain, many area lawns had burned off and wells were running dry. I called my practitioner with my concerns for the farmers' crops and to get insight into what I needed to know about the situation. She said she would pray, and that afternoon, in the middle of the bright sunshine and heat, it began to rain. Although it was a tiny amount, it was enough to assure me that God would not forsake us, keeping the balance on the side of good. I shared my gratitude with my practitioner, and she assured me of God's love and care for His children. A couple more weeks went by with no restorative rain in sight. But during this entire time, the most amazing thing was occurring. The grass on my property remained as green and lush as it was in the spring. The flowers I planted were in full bloom, and the tomato plants I planted at the end of May were already producing red tomatoes. Everything seemed to be flourishing. My son even landed an interview with a very large company that would provide him with the money and security to move forward. That glimpse of heaven I experienced while at the church in Plainfield continues to have its presence in my life today. I am so deeply grateful to God for everything I've been given. Last week, with a humble heart, I reached out to my practitioner once more with concerns about the drought in the area and the guilt I felt for having so much. With her loving support, I began to understand that in time, all shall know God and find that perfect balance. It has been steadily raining, a soft, gentle, restorative rain since Sunday morning. I am so grateful to God for all I'm learning through the study of Christian Science and for the continual work of my practitioner, which keeps my thoughts focused on the truth and ever balanced on the side of good. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleen from Massachusetts, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for the music and the readings tonight. Both were really wonderful. I'd just like to give gratitude for practitioner help this week. I had a problem with one of my teeth. I've had various problems in the past with decay or pain, and I've healed them and I've been successful, but I've had, it's like this recurrent problem where I get this tooth or that tooth. And so I called, and she told me that my teeth were rooted in love. And that was a great help to me. And I realized my teeth are rooted in love, strong, enduring, power, love is power, and my being is rooted in love, and all being is rooted in love. Everything that God made, everything is love, rooted in love. And so it's helped me. I have no more pain, and I feel fine. But what I love is the bigger picture, that when I might see a discordant situation, I can say, is that rooted in love? And if that's not rooted in love, so it's a lie. And it's been helping me. It's been wonderful. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm going to keep working to know that everything real is rooted in love. And I'm very grateful. Thank you for tonight.
Thank you. Dede from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Tonight, it was read that the only true ambition is to serve God and to help the race. I'm grateful for my study of Christian Science in this church, which has made this more than an ambition, as this is now my purpose in life, which guides my actions and helps me to align my thoughts with God. I used to strive to merely do good and to be good as best as I knew how, humanly. And I now understand that the most good that I can do is to be of better service to God each day, knowing that the race will always be helped in some way as a result. I'm grateful to be learning the blessings that come from doing my best to serve God in my appointed corner. I'm so thankful for tonight's meeting, for the wonderful, inspiring readings, for all the testimonies given so far. I'm grateful for all the work going on in this church that is changing my life. Thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you. Fairley from Maryland, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm very grateful to be here tonight. It seemed my husband and I went out for an early supper, and while we were just eating our meal, suddenly there was this huge downpour of rain and these predictions of flooding. And I've never seen anything like it. It was just overwhelming. And so we took some of the food with us. We were going to try to go on home. But when we got to the door, a man who had been at another table came to us and said, "You better not go out there now because it's really, really a terrible, terrible flooding. You have to wait. So, and I'll come back in a little while and try to take you out with an umbrella." After he left us, which was very nice, I prayed to know that God is in control of the elements. I declared God is in control of the elements. It's just the vapid fury of mortal mind that's trying to prevent me from going to my meeting tonight. Peace, be still. And the rain suddenly quit. I was almost shocked by it. And these two girls came with an umbrella. They worked for the little restaurant. And I said, "You see, it's just stopped." I said, "I prayed. I'm a Christian Scientist. And God controls the elements." And so we quickly got into our car. More rain was going to meet us. I mean, the rain started up again. We had quite a difficult drive home. But I was very grateful because we were sheltered in getting to our car. And thank you very much for the very good readings tonight. And it's wonderful to be here.
Thank you. Jeff.
Thank you for the beautiful readings, testimonies, and music. I would like to take this God-provided opportunity, our Wednesday night meeting, to share what God has done for me, as found in the revealed truth of Christian Science. 1 year ago, my marriage was in serious danger of being lost in a sea of pain and trouble. Losing my wife to divorce felt like losing my best friend. I was in the dark and headed for the rocks, and with no lighthouse in sight. I became very depressed. Then I came here to Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent, and looking up, I read the words of Mary Baker Eddy, inscribed on the wall. To those leaning on the sustaining infinite, today is big with blessings. How big and welcoming and big and promising those words on the wall sounded to me. And they made me feel something really big is happening. Though I was not sure what it was then. But now I know in hindsight that I had found my spiritual home. During the past year, I learned to listen and listen to learn to what was being taught here, and Christian Science unlocked and revealed what dwelled within me, the kingdom of God. Today is indeed big with blessings for those of us who are leaning on the sustaining infinite. A really big thank you to our leader, Mary Baker Eddy, for giving us this wonderful science, and for practitioner support, and for the new family I found here at Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent. Thanks for helping me to save my marriage, everyone.
Thank you. Jeremy.
I'm very grateful for the purpose and meaning that God has brought to me through the work I do here in Plainfield. When I first started doing work for this church, I wondered how long it would last. At first, I thought it would just be a few days, and then I got to the point I thought maybe it would be a year. Now, after being here 5 years, it amazes me how much more work there still is to do. All along the way, God has been showing me how to be more organized and more efficient. And there seems to be this cycle of, oh wow, this is a lot of work, which then over the next few months becomes, I feel like I'm ready to take on more. I very much enjoy this, and it certainly keeps me feeling useful. It has also been quite life-changing to be learning Christian Science at the same time as doing this work. I know for certain that the work would not be possible without the science, nor could I do it without daily practitioner support. It always feels like I gain the understanding of some portion of science just in time to put it to use in the work. And at each stage, I've been given just what I needed to move forward. I'm very grateful to be a member and worker for this church. Thank you. And now I have a testimony from Diana in Berlin and Vienna.
Hello, this is Diana from Berlin and Vienna. I'm in Vienna now. I wanted to call tonight and express gratitude for excellent practitioner help which I received from this church about 3 weeks ago. I have been dealing with aggressive animal magnetism that is coming into my life and expressing itself through an important relationship. It's been very difficult for me, and I am really trying to impersonalize this error. I am affirming that this error can only destroy itself, which I do know. But what's interesting is that I'm noticing that this error really has been releasing a lot of negativity that is within me. It's brought it to the surface so that it can then come out. And I do feel that that's a blessing for me. So for that, I am grateful. The affirmation that I received from the practitioner is that this aggressive animal magnetism cannot attack my Christ, my home, my marriage, my career, my voice, my life, my joy, my happiness. It is powerless because it is not of God. I'm just so grateful for this affirmation, and it makes me feel so much better when I express it. One of the things that I'm so grateful for with this church is that it teaches us to not just pray for ourselves. It teaches us to have unselfed love. And I know that there are others in the world right now who are dealing with a similar situation that I am dealing with. So I have turned this prayer into not just a prayer for me, but for others experiencing a similar situation. I was so grateful to hear Gary's testimony a few weeks ago about trying to heal his hip. And when he prayed for himself, it got better, but sort of came back. And it wasn't until he started praying for all of mankind, this unselfed love, praying for others as well who had this problem, that he experienced true healing. So the teaching that this church is giving us about unselfed love, about watching, is so wonderful. And I just, learning about Mary Baker Eddy's home and how these people who were working in her home were not just there to cook and clean and be her secretary and all of that. They were actually there to be watchmen for mankind. They were there to be her assistance and support this Christian Science movement, this work to uphold mankind in a state of godliness. And I just think, wow, wouldn't it be amazing if all of our homes were like this? If we all took up this work and all of us did this in our homes, it would just change the world, as we know. So I just want to, again, express my gratitude for all of this work that everybody in the church is doing, for all of those who are listening on the internet and learning and growing and really trying to make a positive difference in this world at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara from Pennsylvania.
Barbara from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. A couple of weeks ago, we had a car problem that, for a few reasons, was not easily solved. Once most hurdles were overcome, and we had, after several days, located the needed part, had a repair appointment, and scheduled, and a few logistics were solved. I was still feeling some angst and concern, and mentioned the challenge to a Plainfield practitioner who was already supporting me but didn't know about the transportation challenge. She turned me to Herbert Eustace's Clear, Correct Teachings, where he discusses automobile troubles. Very helpful. Alerted me not to neglect the need to work about the God qualities of honesty and competence, and said she would work specifically on the day the work was to be done. On repair day, our ride found us immediately, even though there weren't signs at the dealership and we weren't parked where repair customers usually park. The work was done much more quickly than the service rep led us to expect. The cost was less than either of the two estimates they had quoted, and we were on our way home well before heavy commute traffic and able to pick up needed groceries on the way. Christian Science is practical. I'd like to express gratitude for guidance, support, correction, and joy in working with a practitioner who shares so generously of her more advanced understanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda.
Thank you for the service tonight. I am really grateful for a recent instruction that was given at a roundtable class about 2 weeks ago on the lesson Life. We were told to forget our body and remember the good we need to do for God. This is based on Jesus' teaching found in the Bible and Mary Baker Eddy's writings, which are based on the Bible. I decided to watch my thought more closely, and each time I found myself focused on the body, I decided I would pray for the world. I was quite surprised how often that I was focused on the body, sometimes unconsciously, and often worried. This was a blessing because it brought peace that I felt when I was aligning my thought with God. This idea to replace the focus on the body and thinking less of it and remembering the good I needed to do for God has been a wonderful, helpful tool and blessing. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary.
I was told a good story recently that I'd like to share. This is something that was told to me by my business partner, who has been a really good partner and friend for many, many years. By way of background, he is one of the most selfless and giving and honest and outward people that I know. He volunteers one night a week to drive an ambulance for the volunteer ambulance squad. He and his wife spend a week in Haiti every year with some doctors administering medical supplies to a region that has no medical facilities. He's not a Christian Scientist, but he knows that we are, and he respects that tremendously. His wife's a Roman Catholic, and when he does go to church, he goes to her church to support her. Well, last Sunday, he and his wife were at their summer house, which is out at the end of Long Island on the Long Island Sound. And he woke up and got this message very clearly that he shouldn't go to church with her this morning, but he should go out on the water in his boat. He has a little fishing boat that he loves. And he says that whenever he goes out on the water, he said that's his time to commune with God. So he wasn't sure why he was getting this message. He wasn't going to go fishing or anything. But he did it because it came to him so strongly that that's what he should do. So he took his boat out, and it was storming. It was windy. The waves were very high. And he was out there, not knowing why he was out there, and he was certainly the only boat out there, so he thought. Well, he didn't go very far before he saw something in the water. And he went over to look at it, and here was a man in the water, waving his arms violently, clearly in trouble. His kayak had taken on water and was sinking. The man had a life jacket on, but he was unable, he didn't know how to swim, so he was scared to death and having great difficulty. So Tom, my partner, went over and pulled him up out of the water. The guy couldn't move, literally, he was so distraught. And Tom pulled up his kayak out of the water and got it into his boat. And when the fellow was finally able to tell him where he came from, he was from Eastern Europe visiting friends in the United States. So Tom took him back to where he came from. He said he had been out with some friends of his in their kayaks fishing, and the storm had taken him away and got lost, and he didn't know where he was, and he couldn't get back. So on the way back, they saw his friends. They waved. Their friends were very, very happy to see them. They thought that their friend was gone forever. So when he dropped the fellow off, the fellow was more than grateful for Tom having literally saved his life. And after Tom told me this story, this was last Sunday morning, he said, "Isn't that the strangest thing? Isn't that the craziest thing?" I laughed and I said, "No, it's not crazy. That's how God works." And I said, "Tom, it's to your credit that God called you to save this fellow and you listened and obeyed. This would be a very good story for your children and your grandchildren on the importance of listening to that still small voice and obeying it." And then I chuckled and said, "Well, as Jesus said, God made you a fisher of men," which he laughed. But I thought, here's a fellow who is very Christian, lives a very moral life, very unselfed, and very willing to help anybody at any time. And he was obviously the right person to save this fellow, and he got the call and he obeyed it. It is Christianly scientific to listen to that still small voice and obey it, and he did. So I wanted to share this with everybody tonight. There is a God, and he is good, and he does take care of us when we listen. It's great to be here tonight.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Tonight I'd like to give gratitude for the reminder for us all to recognize Mrs. Eddie's place, what she has done. The words to work out our own salvation came to thought many years ago, one early morning, and it was read tonight from Philippians. And following that, there were several enlightenments which led me to really study Bicknell Young's 1937 as well. But some of the thoughts were that I had to make God first, and that to achieve this salvation meant that I cannot just rely on practitioner or anyone, but to seek God, to really desire to know him, and to realize that I do have the dominion inside, just like anyone else, to seek and feel his presence wherever I was or I happen to be, to bring the Christ to every situation like we try to do here. I'm so grateful for the teaching in this church because this is here. It is here where I learned from the classes that were given so many years ago how to really practice the science. And lately, I'm so grateful that Mrs. Eddy's place has been mentioned so many times because after all, she is the one who has brought the message of salvation to this age. And I find in myself that when I give time to really be grateful, to humbly be so grateful for all that she gave to give this to the world, it makes a difference in my work. And I know that we are all being taught this, and we will all do this in order for this truth to go out and bless the world. Happy to be here tonight.
Thank you. Okay, to close our meeting tonight, Linda, can you please announce the last hymn?
Hymn number 82. God is working his purpose out as year succeeds to year. God is working his purpose out, and the time is drawing near. Nearer and nearer draws the time that shall surely be, when the earth shall be filled with the glory of God, as the waters cover the sea. Hymn number 82.